Hello, folks. A long time no see. So recently I've been reading a lot of CopperCube forum, and it seems like many people still struggle to start coding with JavaScript, especially elderly ones. And I thought it's a good time to maybe record another tutorial related to how you actually start with JavaScript and CopperCube. And I'm gonna do maybe 5 or 6 videos about JavaScript basics. It's like primitive types, objects, functions, stuff like that, and maybe another one regarding how you actually create your first extension. Uh, so what this one will be about? This is the first video. In this one, we will figure out how to how to install the environment, which we're going to be used for our education purposes. And also we will talk a bit about why do you need JavaScript in CopperCube. Um, and the third thing, we will discuss some of the primitive types that we are going to be using in our coding and what we can do with these primitive types, why are they important. So let's start with the first topic. We are not going to be using CopperCube first because it takes quite a lot of time to run the script in CopperCube. Instead, we're going to install Visual Studio Code. You can go to the website called visualstudio.com and download it. You can download build for operation system of your choice, install it, and next thing, you open it like that. You go to any folder on your hard drive. You create a new folder there. I already put something here. Let's just remove it. You drag and drop the folder into your Visual Studio Code, and you're almost ready to go, but not quite. You need to go to extension, search for Code Runner here, install this extension. I already have it installed, so it's just disabled now, uninstall for me, but it will be installed for you. And that's almost over, but not yet. You go to Preference now, you go to Settings, and here you search for Clear. And you need to set this checkbox to checked. Clear previous output. That's it. Basically, the basic setup is almost finished. Now, inside your folder, we use this new file button to create new file. Call it something. I usually call it just index.js because it's the main file of the project. And let's make sure everything works by creating a hello world application, which is console log hello world in JavaScript. Remember to put brackets and remember to put hello world in either single or double quotes. It doesn't matter. You can use both in JavaScript. If everything fine, you can see that there are no errors. If you have an error, it will highlight you there. It's actually why I'm using Visual Code. It's quite convenient because it has a syntax highlight and it has autofill and stuff like that. Now we can press this little button here in order to run the code and see if everything works. As you can see, it does. So great, the video is over. No, of course not. Um, let's talk about JavaScript first before we start in like getting deeper into coding for CopperCube. Why do you actually need JavaScript and what JavaScript can do for your game? As every programming language, JavaScript is designed to work with data, to modify data in some way. And this is important because everything about your game is data. So let's say player position, it's data. So you have like your position on x-axis, you have your position on y-axis, you have your position on z-axis. And with JavaScript, you can modify it. So it was 20. Now let's say it's 30, something like that. Let's say your player name. It's, let's call it player one. So You can use it, for example, into the overlay to show the player name, or if player decides to change their name to something more interesting, not player one, because I just don't have imagination. Um, it could be modified to something else, player two, obviously. What else? And also, let's say player health. It's also data. It also could be modified. So player got hit by a bullet and it was 100, now it's 80. It's modified. And all these things you can do with JavaScript. And this is a really convenient way. You can also obviously use the built-in functions, the non-coding approach, but it's quite limited compared with what you can do with JavaScript. So how JavaScript works? JavaScript engines, it's just you feed a file to it and then it runs file command by command, line by line, and executes in one line after each other. So for example, we just copy this line here and maybe just slightly modify it to something else. If we run it again, remember to save the file, run it again, you will see that it output exactly what we thought it will. So basically you have your first console log, it will say hello world, it's also hello world here, it will say hello, it's also the same here, it's this line here, this line here. So what the JavaScript engine was doing, it was just going through all lines, through all commands, and executing them one by one. And this is pretty much the same which happens inside the CopperCube engine. So the very last thing which I would like to mention before we go to primitive types is that all this series will be really oversimplified. So I just want to keep like the complexity to the bare minimum, so it's easy to understand more or less, and it doesn't cover like the deep things which lay in the bottom of JavaScript iceberg. So some of the things from this tutorial probably at some point stopped working as you thought they are, because they are not described exactly how they should work. So, okay, this was sort of an input, sort of like introduction. Let's start with our data type. Let's remove everything that we don't need, and let's talk about this line console log hello world here. So we can basically divide this line into two, this command, this line into two parts. First of all, we have console log, which obviously what it does, it just takes some argument, once again, some argument, and like hello world, like this line here, and put it to the console output. So let's talk about the second part, which is quite more exciting for the topic of this video. You have your data here, and this data is a string. A string is your basic data type, which holds the text. A line of text, multiple line of text, doesn't matter. String can not only hold letters, contain letters, it can also contain numbers, it can also contain special characters, letters, whatever it takes. And besides only using single quotes, you can also define your strings using double quotes like that. It doesn't matter, but for example, if you want to put a word like don't inside the string, it's much more convenient to use double quotes. So you don't have to mask this symbol, because otherwise you will see something like that and it will lead you to an error. So the second data type is your number. Numbers pretty self-explanatory. It's your numbers 1, 2, 3, 10.5 minus 777 0.3. As you can see, JavaScript doesn't divide numbers into any categories. So decimal numbers and also regular integer numbers are all numbers. They all belong to the same type. And we also have our last but not least useful primitive type, which is Boolean. Boolean, you have it's a binary type, and you can only have two values here. It could be either true or it can be false. That's it. In real life, real JavaScript, modern JavaScript, I believe it has like 7 primitive data types, but this is all we need for programming with Java for CopperCube. And now let's comment everything out, and also you. And let's talk a bit about what we can do with these data types, because we were talking before, we were talking about how everything is about modifying your data. So on a very basic level, what you can do two things with these values. You can either compare them, or you can apply mathematical operators. So if you want to compare two values, you have the following options. Basically, you can either verify that they're equal. This is the equality operator. Notice that it's not like one equal thing, not one equal character. It's two equals, because this one equal thing is another operator. We will talk about it a bit later. There is also another type of equal operator, which is three equal symbols. And the difference is there's a big difference in them. But basically, if you want to know more, you can probably just Google it or ask ChatGPT. It will give you a really good explanation what is the difference. Basically, spoiler, it's related to typecasting. You can verify that two values are not equal. You can verify that one value is, for example, less than another, less or equal than another, greater or equal than another, and or greater than another. But it's pretty much all like the basic compare functions, and these are pretty much ones which you will be using in CopperCube all the way. And so let's talk about mathematical operators. It's even simpler here. So you have your addition, you have your subtraction, you have your multiplication, and you have your division. That's it. So let's talk a bit about how you can apply this operator to your data of different types. Let's start with Boolean. With Boolean, it only makes sense. Let's just console log the result so we can see what is the actual result, to apply like compare operators to them. So you have, for example, true, and you can verify that true is equals to true. What do you think it will give? Like what do you think the outcome of this comparison would be? You totally right. It will be also true if I save the file, obviously. We can verify, let's say, if true not equals to true, and it will be false. And currently it doesn't make any sense because we're just comparing two values, but it's just to show you like how the logic works. In real life application, it obviously won't make any sense. So with numbers, you can also compare numbers. So if 1 equals 1, it will be true. If 1 equals 2, it will be false. 1 is smaller or equals to 2, it will be true, and so on. You got the idea. And you can do mathematical operations with numbers. So 2 plus 3, 4. Okay, 2 plus 4, it will be 6. That's nice. 20 divided by 4, it will be 5. So it works like your basic calculator. And there's also a possible Lie. Okay, just a typo. Obviously, I know how to spell words. And so you can also do sort of mathematical operator with strings, but it's not called addition. It's called concatenation. You can sort of sum up two strings, jam two strings together, so then they make one string. So let's say this is string 1 plus this is string 2. So now if I save the file and run the program, you can see that these two strings are jammed together. Now it's one string, concatenation. So I've been talking a bit about how these types are important, and the reason why it's important for you to know, or haven't I been talking about it? It doesn't matter. Basically, it's really important for you to understand which type of value are you using, because under the hood, what JavaScript does, if you're using one of like compare or mathematical operators, it will cast one of the variables to another type. So for example, if you have a string which contains number 22, even though it's a number inside this single quotes, it's still a string because it's in the single quotes. So it's not a number. Technically speaking, it's a string for JavaScript. So if you just run type of 22, it will tell us that this is a string, not a number. So if you want number, we just need to remove quotes. It will be a number. What happens a lot of time, you try, for example, to sum a string with a number, and what do you think will happen? 30 seconds to answer to this question. You will receive 221. This happens because how JavaScript operates with values with different types. So JavaScript looks to this one. Oh, okay, this is a string. That's nice. So this is a plus operator, and this is a number. I know that I can concatenate strings with this plus operator, so I need to change type of this one number to one string, and now it just concatenates to string. And so this is how you got 221, because this is a string 221. I hope you follow, you still here. But if, for example, you will subtract 1 from string 22, suddenly you will get 21. Why this is happening? Because there is no operation with string with minus operator. So just thought, okay, there is 1 here, this is a number. So what do I do with it? Probably I need to change type of 22 to number. So I just parse it to number. And now if I run it, I will get 21, which is a number. So you got the idea. I think this is it for this video. It's already 20 minutes long, which is much more longer than I thought it would be. And in the next one, we will talk about variables.